In this video I'm going to be fitting a set of Shimano GRX levers to a set of Shimano XT calipers. So here's all the stuff we're going to use to fit our GRX levers to our Shimano XT calipers. First of all, you need a hose that's long enough to reach the brake that you're going to do and has the right fitting on it for your caliper. There's at least two types of Shimano hoses. One has this end on it and the other one has an interchangeable end that you can basically trim down both ends of the hose. This bit is actually bonded on. The Saint ones are gold and the XT and other ones are silver, but they're pretty much the same. There's the part number for you. You're going to need one of these little olive barb and clamp bolt for the caliper. That goes, for the lever, that goes in here. That wee plug comes out and it gets replaced. I'll show you that in a minute. You're going to need a funnel. Now this was a mountain bike brake funnel. The mountain bike brake funnels have got smaller threads in them, so it's got a little silver adapter you can see on the bottom to make the thread bigger. So basically Shimano have decided to make the road levers have a bigger thread on them than the mountain bike levers. You're going to need a syringe to scoot the mineral oil from the caliper up the system and bleed it up. You need some mineral oil and some isopropyl alcohol for when you spill it everywhere. You're also going to need a little bleed block to replace your brake pads in your Shimano caliper. So that basically has to, that's the little bit in the middle, that has to tie into whatever caliper you're using. And the other two yellow pieces are for clamping your hose. So first thing I'm going to do is cut the hose to the right length. Now what I'm going to do is attach it to the caliper, run it the full length of the frame using the exact routing that I'm planning to use, and then run it into where the little stopper comes out on this lever. In this instance I have bought a Shimano front brake and I'm using it as a back brake, which is why I've got to fit a longer hose. If you had a hose that was too long already, you would be able to just chop a little section off the front end of it. So here's how that little banjo bolts onto the caliper. The bolt that goes through the caliper is actually pretty long. It's got two little seals, one either side of this, and that pops into this hole here, and then you just make sure you've got your hose at the right angle for where you want it to go and tighten it up. So I like to cut Shimano non-braided hoses with a scalpel or a sharp craft knife. You want to get a really straight cut on them. So I'm gonna do this off camera because I don't want to mess it up. Yeah, measure twice, cut once, or measure 5 times and cut once in my case, because I just want to make sure you get it right. You can't stick this back on. When you're measuring for the hose length, you want to allow for about 18 mil, I think it is, of hose to be inserted in here. So don't cut it to this length. Cut it so that there's enough for 18 mil or 15 mil or so of hose to go inside the lever. So next thing you want to do is you want to put this little barb into the end of your hose after you've cut it nice and straight. This basically goes in here. You want to leave enough of the hose sticking out the top of the clamp that you're using in your vise to make sure that the barb can get all the way in before it gets into the middle of this clamped up yellow bit, because if you don't, then the barb won't go in very easily. So you basically push the barb in to start and then knock it the rest of the way in with lots and lots and lots of little taps. Now lots of little taps means that you don't smash it, so I recommend tapping it lots of times rather than one big hit. Next thing you do is you put the little bolt and the olive onto the hose in this order. This is the end that goes into the lever. So just for my reference, I made a little mark 15 mil onto the hose so that I could make sure that I've inserted it far enough before I tighten it. So there's a little mark 15 mil from the end on this. I'm going to slide it in. Just make sure that that mark disappears. Yep. And then I'm going to tighten this up. So there we have, tightened up. It's not bottomed out against the lever. This one here has already been bled up, and that's a little gap that it ended up with. Basically just did it until it was tight and then a little bit more. So next, to bleed this up, you just simply pop this off. Undo this little cover here, and this is where your bleed funnel fits in. Make sure you don't misthread this one. Just do this with fingers, don't do it with any tools. You want to be reasonably certain that you haven't misthreaded it and ripped it to pieces. And then the next thing you do is attach a full syringe full of Shimano mineral oil to the rear brake. I've been a little bit lazy here and I'm not even taking the wheel off the bike or using the bike stand. So basically what you want to do is get all the air out of your syringe full of fluid and attach that to the bleed nipple here on your brake. Once you've attached that and you've made sure that there's no air bubble right at the end, you want to use a 7mm spanner. Open this bleed nipple, and at that point there, got a little bit of air coming out here. I'll wait for that bubble to come up. Come on, bubble. People are busy, they don't have time to wait for you. So once you've got a bubble-free line, you can push the fluid through the system. Now if it's not going straight away, you probably haven't opened this enough. Open it a bit further. There we go. And this should fill the entire system. Because this is the first fill, it might take a reasonable amount before it starts coming out the top into the funnel. Now it's coming out the other end into the funnel. So I want to make sure that I've tapped all the lines to get any of the air bubbles out. Finish pushing some more of this fluid through without filling up the little funnel and overflowing it onto the carpet, assuming you're doing it inside, and tighten this little bolt up. Nut, bolt, bolt. So get that tight before completely detaching this, and you now have a pressurised system. Well, now you've got fluid in your system. So assuming all's gone well, the other end of your system should look like this. You have a little plunger to plop in. This will allow you to seal off this, so that not so much fluid pours out everywhere. Pick up a rag that you prepared earlier, stick it on here, and undo this little funnel. So you want to try to get this nice and level just before it comes off, so you don't spill too much. Have somewhere nice ready to drop it, and wipe this off, and we'll get this little stopper back in. Now normally I use isopropyl alcohol spray for this, but all the shops around here have run out of spray, so Instead of using a spray bottle with this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour it on the top because I want it all off. Wipe it up, and I should be mineral oil free on my lever, but I've got a bit of isopropyl alcohol knocking about which will evaporate relatively quick. Now, before I stick the pads in or anything, I'm going to give this a few pumps. It usually takes, I don't know, 20 pumps or something before the brake starts to feel a bit stiffer and have some sort of bite to it. Feel the brake starting to come in now. Next I'm going to pull this bleed block out and replace the pads. Relatively simple. Just make sure these pads, if you've got the thinned ones, they are directional, so there's a left and a right. Chuck this back in. I'll tighten that up, and then I'll chuck this on now. There's a little circlip here, or a little clip. Goes on the other end to make sure that if this comes loose, your pads don't fall out. Nice and tight. Put this over here. Chuck some bolts in, and we should have a back brake on this bike. After you've fitted the levers, attached it, bled them, all you've got to do is centralise the calipers and set them up the way you like them. If you want me to make a video about that, then let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see any more of the bike that's in this video, that's my Kona Honzo gravel bike build, so mountain bike with drop bars. Other videos about that, so have a look at that too. Hopefully you'll be out in the trail soon. See you later.